Let's go right now, and apologies for keeping you waiting, Ben Pyle. He's a co-founder of the Climate Debate UK and joins us. A very, very good morning to you.
Morning, Julia.
Apologies for keeping you waiting. I want to talk to you about when we can and when we cannot use slave labour to produce goods in this country, because Labour government very, very opposed to use of slave labour, as we should all be. They've got a very big issue with slavery that happened 200 or 300 years ago. I mean, that they're obsessed with that. Not so bothered, it would seem, when it comes to the Uyghur Muslims in China, kept in slave labour camps, who are producing most of the world's solar panels, because Ed Miliband, the Energy Secretary, wants to spend £180 million putting solar panels on schools and hospitals. Bearing in mind, most of them do have flat roofs, rather stupidly, in a country where it rains a lot. Lots of those will be coming from China. They produce 80% of the world's solar panels. But he and the government are basically rejecting and urging MPs tonight in a vote to reject a Lord's amendment, which is going to be debated for the great British Energy Bill in the Commons today, basically to prevent any chance of these solar panels having been made with slave labour. So how do we know when we do and don't care about slave labour?
That's a really good question. We've been arguing for a long time that the reason China is so dominant in the renewable sector is only because of European and UK laws that enable it. We've created a market for Chinese goods here, and we created that on the promise that, we created that on the promise that that would create domestic industries, that would kickstart. This is 25 years ago.
Yeah.
They said if we subsidized renewable energy, solar panels and wind turbines, then there would be manufacturers created in Britain to take advantage of those subsidies. And that just hasn't happened. No. What's happened is energy prices have gone up and up and up, and that's affected all of our industries. Meanwhile, China had taken the opposite approach and said, we're going to keep energy prices low, and that's going to enable our manufacturers to exploit markets that are created by
because also one of the reasons their energy prices are low, of course, and slave labour, of course, is also very cheap. Yeah. One of the reasons energy prices are low is because they are often producing solar panels and indeed wind turbines in factories that are powered by coal.
That's right. Yeah, I mean, we've done doubly stupid things. So not only do we subsidise the purchase of Chinese goods, we punish the production of cheap energy in the UK, and so that largely involves closing down our coal-fired power stations, and then that creates extra pressure on gas. So when the renewables aren't working, when there's no sunshine, when the wind isn't blowing, there's no electricity. So gas has to pick up the slack, and it has to do more now that we've abolished coal. So European and British energy policies have been completely counterproductive, and they've been completely hostile to British industry and to the interests of domestic consumers as well. And now it's become such a priority for the government that they're starting to abandon any other principles that we might have called ethical in the past.
And you would have thought that not using slave labour would be kind of one of the ones you'd want to stick to as a pretty basic one. It is extraordinary, isn't it? I mean, they do talk a good game on this, and as I say, I don't understand why they're so much more concerned about slavery that was abolished by Britain hundreds of years ago than they are with slavery that's happening in the here and the now. It's very, very bizarre. Let's also talk, though, about these heat pumps. There are different rules involving heat pumps. I'm still convinced that the heat pump sort of rulings in terms of net zero policies will be thrown out eventually, simply because they are unworkable for most homes. I certainly, I mean, if there's a time when I will absolutely stand my ground, ain't nobody coming into my house and forcing me to have a heat pump. End of. Not happening. But households who are fitting a new heat pump, that has to be done by someone who's certified and trained to do heat pumps. But if it's a new build and there is a requirement that all new builds have heat pumps from later this decade, then there's a real concern that the people putting in those heat pumps could be rogue traders. Tell us what the issue is there.
Well, every government initiative that has sort of been driven us towards the net zero targets, net zero agenda for the last 20 years have ultimately resulted in a lot of people, a lot of chancers jumping into that market. I don't know if you remember there was a time at which people would start trying to sell you electricity by knocking you on your door.
Yeah.
So you could get to switch provider. That was all European legislation designed to sort of integrate markets and so on and so forth. And then there were the boiler upgrade scams. You'd get called endlessly, and the same for solar panels. You get unscrupulous traders who sort of cash in on the government's desire to sort of accelerate one particular sector, and that's going to be true of the heat pump system, as well as as home insulation. All of these things, all of these attempts that the government have made to try and persuade the public to sort of insulate their home, increase their energy efficiency, they've just fallen flat on their face, because most of the public don't actually believe any of these claims, and
well,
most
quite
households
rightly, because
are better at doing the math.
Yeah, a lot of it's absolutely nonsense, and there have been lots of engineers planning to do it with the idea there'll be a ban on gas boilers in a few years' time. Not going to happen. It's just not going to happen.
It's the same as the China. They're relaxing the ethics on dealing with China, and then they relax the rules that traders are subject to and technicians are subject to. Everything gets put second to the net zero agenda.
Yeah, but basically, carry on pretending it's all going to happen. But it's actually most houses in Britain are totally unsuitable for this, because it works fine if your houses in Norway routinely have these heat pumps, but they're built with incredible insulation because, of course, they get to very, very freezing temperatures every single year. We don't have that. Our houses are not built to the same standard. It simply won't work for most people. It involves an incredible amount of, it's not just sort of, I'll take my gas boiler out, clunk, put a new boiler in. It's a completely different technology. It involves changing pretty much everything in your home. You're looking at tens of thousands of pounds. Most people simply don't have that money. They're not going to be eligible for these grants. They're not going to do it. The market for second-hand dodgy boilers is going to be huge, and I'll be happily in the queue to get one of those.
That's right. I think no government, in fact, not just this current one, no government has explained to the public how much it's going to cost. But we have got experimental data, which doesn't get published very often, that shows to sort of bring a house, a very modest house, like a local authority 2 up, 2 down, or a former local authority 2 up, 2 down, it's going to cost in the order of £60,000 to make it sort of net zero compliant, and only save about £300 or £400 a year in electricity. And that's without even a heat pump. So add another 10, 15 grand onto that.
The whole thing, Ben, is absolute madness. You've been writing about this for years. You've been fantastic on this. And I mean, we know that, you know that. The public, I think, now know it. I think now the Tories are getting on board, along with Reform UK, been there a long time, anti-net zero. I just don't think it survives the decade. I really don't. Ben Parr, co-founder of Climate Debate UK. Quick word from Tom Slater on this. I think you're absolutely right. I think the public have started to notice this, and therefore it's only a matter of time before politicians have to take notice. And it's happened with the EV cars. Don't want to buy them. Absolutely. They don't want to buy them, so they don't buy them. And there's every time that these policies collide with the public, when they realise what the actual cost of it is going to be, not just for them but for society, that's when you start to see things reined in. And we're in the process of doing that. Slowly, they'll do it at first, but eventually it will get. It's almost like voters know what they're doing, isn't it? Funny that. There we go.